to improve. We are now in process of speeding up procurement contracts for repairs to pipelines, critical materials that we want to stock up in stores in addition to what we currently have. And then obviously there's a labor component. These are manned jobs, so we are looking at reallocating extra budget for overtime and so forth. And then there's supplementary services. We have steel pipelines in our system. Not all repairs are plastic pipes or HDP pipes or AC pipes for that matter. We're procuring additional welding services because in CBD specifically in parts of Old Rudaport, there's steel pipelines that are compromised. They require welding and fabrication. In addition to that, we are procuring additional 10 TLBs. TLBs are essentially what we use to excavate pipe. Those are the yellow machine that one sees along the roadsides. So we're improving the capacity of our machinery to support our teams as well in terms of our turnaround. And then what we call is improving our first line response teams. We have certain functions within our networks depots where we're aiming, and we currently are in that process. We started a while back where we want to isolate bursts to save water, at least within the first hour or so. If we can isolate most or every burst within the hour, we curb that water lost through the burst. Other interventions, we're intensifying our level 3 disconnections in prepayment areas and banned and hijacked buildings in the CBD. Bylaw enforcement, like I said, we're focusing a lot in bylaw enforcement. There's got to be a respect for bylaws, and with the respect of bylaws comes the enforcement. We've partnered with JMPD and SAPS on various initiatives. Some statistics, last week alone, we disconnected 12 hijacked or bad buildings in the CBD. This week alone, we've disconnected 8 hijacked buildings or bad buildings in the CBD. And these are all buildings that have been taken over, invaded, or left in a terrible state where there's leaks and bursts and wastage and there's no accountability. We stepped in, enforced the bylaws, cut off, and we continue to do that on a week-to-week basis. Also, I mentioned the disconnection of illegal connections. We are going back into those areas, refocusing our resources. We are planning an operation on a prepayment area in the south. I'm not going to mention the name, but we will be coming into the southern area to disconnect. We do not choose whether it's north, south, east, and west. What we look at is we look at our books and we look at where there's default in terms of payments, and we go in. It can be in any area, whether it's a low income or a middle income or high income. It exists throughout all areas.
Logan Munsami, Joburg Water's Operations Manager. Civil society group WaterCan has called upon the government to urgently address the crisis. WaterCan Executive Manager Pharrell Adam says the cause of frequent water outages is aging infrastructure. Joining us on the line now is Pharrell Adam. Pharrell, thanks for joining us. What's your reaction to those interventions that Joburg Water are planning?
So good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your show. I think that some of it, of course, is necessary, but I do think that when we're looking at the targeting of the connections and illegal connections, we also need to acknowledge the inequality of access in South Africa. And that is something that's not being talked about. The fact that only around 46% of South Africans actually have a running tap in their homes is clear that there's a problem with access. So that also needs to be dealt with at the same time, and that's a service that needs to be provided by the city of Joburg.
Part of the problems that the city's been experiencing recently has been lack of electricity to pump stations. You think they would have learnt from load shedding to solve that problem?
I agree, and I think that what we've been told is that the pump stations require a much higher degree of backup than is possible. So that's what we've been informed. What we hope as WaterCan is we're having a site visit with Joburg Water in the coming week or so, and hopefully some of those questions will be answered with them.
Okay, given what you were saying about lack of people not being able to get water, those that are getting water are struggling to get water. So are these interventions going to make a change?
So I think that's the problem, is that a lot of the interventions seem to me to be more long-term. And what are they going to be doing in the immediate? So we had such an outage over the last week in Johannesburg from the Sunday of the power outage at Eikenhof. And it was during that time, where we found that the communication was quite weak. We didn't get enough information, and it was creating a lot of confusion and anger on the ground. So what we're saying is, how do we deal with the immediate outages? We know that there's a long-term plan, and we also need to monitor the long-term plans, because we need to understand the dates of starting the interventions, the kind of the plans, the budgets, etc. So the reservoirs that need to be fixed, when are they starting? With the pipes, if we just take the infrastructure, the aging pipes that we have, just changing 14 kilometers of pipes a year is not going to get us out of this mess. So how do we fast track that? And we as WaterCan have been asking for this and calling, and we're saying national government, treasury, COCTA, they need to ring fence both revenue for water and sanitation as well as the grants that's been given from government to deal with this infrastructure, and that's an urgent issue that needs to be dealt with.
Where's the budget coming from? We heard Munsami saying that they're getting new diggers, they're having to get new people to work on the jobs, they need specialists to do the welding. Where's that budget suddenly going to come from?
Exactly, that's our question as well. That's why we want to say, you've got these plans, where's the budget coming from? Because all this time we're told that they do not have enough enough money, and we know that Joburg Water gets 1.2 billion or 1.3 billion, whereas they need 3 billion. City of Joburg says they don't have the money. So we also are curious to know where they're going to get the money for that infrastructure.
We covered the Westbury protest yesterday. They got violent. There were still a couple of pickets happening today. What are the Westbury residents telling you?
So from yesterday, I know that they had a discussion with the City of Joburg, and they said the bulk of the community said that they will wait and give the City of Joburg 3 days to respond so that they can get water. The protest that happened today was many more people that got together to not only show that the issue is not just Westbury, that is Greater Johannesburg. So you had different organizations, you had people from Emerentia, Melville, the south of Joburg, different organizations, Joburg Crisis Alliance, Rivonia Circle, that all came together to say that this is not just a Westbury issue, it's a broader Joburg issue, and we all have to tackle it together, and we're building a civil society voice around that.
Leave it there. WaterCan Executive Manager Ferriel Adam, thank you very much.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
All right, police have arrested 11 suspects believed to be part of a syndicate that were involved in an attempted theft of a 35 million rand worth of transformer in Laudium substation. According to police, Tshwane municipal employee who was also nabbed as part of the syndicate. We're joined on the line by the Tshwane Metro spokesperson, Selby Bokaba. Selby, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us about how this arrest and this process happened earlier on.
Good afternoon, John, and thanks for the opportunity. Well, we give thanks to the community of Laudium, who, when they saw some unusual activity, a fleet of vehicles at the Laudium substation, Claudia's substation in Laudium, they suspected that something was not on because they were not informed of any planned maintenance taking place at the substation. And secondly, also that there was power supply in the area. So they then contacted TMPD's cable theft unit, who activated the support of the SAPS, and jointly they responded swiftly and managed to foil the attempted theft and also arrested some of the syndicate members, including an employee of the Energy and Electricity Department.
All right, before we talk about that process, can you describe what this transformer looks like?
That thing is massive, John. You can't carry it on the back of your buggy. You need a flatbed truck. And there were a number of them that these guys, already one had already been loaded onto the back of the truck, and they were in the process of loading another one. This is massive. When you talk of an MVA transformer, is something that is massive. And the kind of equipment that they brought there, I mean, they had a very expensive crane. Now, you know, cranes are used for buildings and all and so forth. So you can see that this was not a planned action by some amateurs. This is a very coordinated and very organized and sophisticated syndicate. The question is, we've had so many incidents of theft and vandalism of our infrastructure. It was clear that the people who did this thing are people who had knowledge about the setup of the infrastructure. There was anecdotal evidence in the past that there could be some involvement of employees, but this was confirmed yesterday by what we saw. The question is, how widespread is this? But it at least gives us an idea, evidentiary material that we have now, that employees or an employee at EED, Energy and Electricity Department, was involved. How many are involved? That's the question we should ask.
Okay, so massive trucks, massive infrastructure to be able to move these transformers. When the police approached the operators, the truck operators, crane operators, what did they say they were doing?
Well, they were cornered and they were not even given an opportunity to say why were they there, what were they doing there. It was clear that the action that had been committed there was unlawful, was illegal, was criminal, and that is why they were arrested and detained at the Lodiam police station.
What else? I'm assuming investigations are going to try and work out what else was being removed from that area.
Well, it was the transformer. So remember, they were still in the act. So
Right.
They were caught in the act. God knows what else they would have stolen. Probably they would have stripped naked the entire substation, and the implications are dire to contemplate, because it means that the area would have been without power for quite a number of days, and it would have cost us tens of millions of rand to replace whatever equipment they would have stolen there.
Excuse my naivety, Selby Bokaba, but why would they steal a transformer?
You steal a transformer, you go and connect it elsewhere to power an area.
That simple.
That's simple. Recently in Mamelodi, a few months ago, I think 5 or 6 months or so ago, in Mamelodi East, we found there a transformer that had been stolen from one of the neighboring municipalities, and it was used to power an informal settlement. So you need a transformer. It's like an engine of a vehicle. So when you have a transformer, you can power an area.
Fascinating. Massive. All right, Selby Bukaba, thank you very much. Swane Metro spokesperson telling us about this transformer that was stolen worth 35 million rand. If you have any comments on that, give us a voice note on 082-692-3909. Say that again, 082-692-3909. We'll play those voice notes later on in the show.
Don Gerika on SAFM.
24 minutes past 12 o'clock. Former President Thabo Mbeki has called on delegates at the Cape Town Conversation to come up with meaningful results to promote the agenda of the Global South. The conference is taking place in Somerset West, outside of Cape Town. The two-day event, organized by the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Observer Research Foundation, is a platform to serve as a meeting place for voices and stakeholders of the Global South. It will facilitate issues of global governance, where new challenges, possible solutions, and a map for the future are discussed. Zelene Merrington reports that the conference is taking place as South Africa takes up the presidency of the G20 next year.
The former president has called on this conference to build on what has already been achieved by other countries like Indonesia, India and Brazil, who've hosted the G20.
As South Africa takes over the presidency of the G20 following all these other countries of the South, there must be a message from us here, which says, in continuation of what has been happening in terms of this G-South, the G20 meetings, this is what we want to achieve, this is what this G-South, the G20, the Global South wants to achieve, and this is how it should be done. Of course, we know very well that these important matters that the Global South raises, it raises them in the context of, there are many other issues around the world which take other people's attention away from what we think are very urgent matters. But that's a setting, we can't do anything about that. So I am really hoping, therefore, that we will all attend to this, to discuss these various topics, which are each one of them very important in terms of defining what is this thing that we want and how should it be achieved, so that that becomes the global agenda of the Global South.
Mbeki called on delegates at the conference to come up with concrete plans to take forward.
And I really hope that by the time we conclude here discussing these matters of the Global South and what it needs, we'll also be able to say we come out of here with a message which truly points the way as to how to address these aspirations of the Global South within the context of an international system which is not necessarily that friendly to addressing the aspirations of the Global South.
The president of the think tank, the Observer Research Foundation's Samir Saran, expressed his confidence that South Africa hosting the G20 is bound to be exceptional.
What can certainly be predicted and can safely be assumed is that South Africa's presidency will be compelling. South Africa has shown in the last year that it can take an international stand, it can mobilize international coalition, and it can make decisions work in favor of issues that are fair and ethical. And we expect South Africa's presidency to be in some sense the icing of the cake of the string of Global South presidencies of the G20.
That report by Zelene Merrington in Cape Town.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
We'll take your voice notes after news headlines. 082-692-3909. Plenty to talk about. Transformers and water in Johannesburg. Coming up after news headlines, we got a business update, and then Janet has our sport. We'll see how the Proteas are doing down in Durban. Bad Light stopping play yesterday, and for some odd reason they play late. Instead of starting early when the sun rises early in Durban, they stay late. And we'll get an explanation of that. And then we'll also get an update from Mozambique. Opposition has intensified their protests there. Anti-government protesters and security forces clashing across Mozambique yesterday. Police reporting a killing 2 people and a military vehicle mowing down another. So we'll find out what's happening in our neighbours. All of that and more coming up after news headlines at 12:30.
Thank you, John. In your news headlines, about 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's East Rand yesterday. Johannesburg Water says it's working with law enforcement agencies to disconnect illegal water connections in different areas of the city, and energy experts say South Africa can learn a lot from India in addressing its energy challenges. The Wits Business School, in collaboration with the Consulate General of India, is hosting an energy conference in Johannesburg. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
The rand trading at 18 rand 23 cents to the dollar, 23 rand and 7 cents to the pound sterling, and 19 rand 22 to the euro. Euro trading at $1.05. The dollar is at 151 yen 88. In Brazil, $1 trading at 5 real 93. In Russia, 110 rubles 20. In India, 84 rupees 47. And in China, a dollar changing hands at 7.125. Markets in Asia mostly in the red. Hong Kong's Hang Seng ended 1.2% weaker. Mainland China's Shanghai index gave up 0.4%. India's markets trading lower. Japan's Nikkei gained more than 0.5% in the close of trade. JSE mainly lower at midday. The all-share index dropped 0.1% at 84,976. The industrial 25 index is flat. Financials are up 0.3%. Top 10 resources index declined by 1.3%, while the precious metals and mining index is 1.8% in the red. On the capital market, the yield on the R186 government bond is 8.21%. The yield on the R2030 at 9.01%. Markets in Europe mainly weak at the hour. Britain's FTSE 100 has gained 0.2%. The CAC 40 in France is up 0.6%, and Germany's DAX has added 0.7%. In commodities, gold trading at $2,645, platinum at $935 an ounce. The price of Brent crude oil looking good, $72.52 a barrel.
SAFM Sport with Janet Witten.
The thing, Janet, about Test cricket is you got to wait for both sides to bat twice. But I'm worried.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we're doing this, especially today. I mean, by all accounts, yesterday was a little bit difficult. The weather was kind of the cloud was heavy, even when they were able to play. But by all accounts, it should have been a little bit better today, and we're not looking so clever. So yes, I think that I think that Sri Lanka are enjoying their lunch much more than the Proteas.
What's happening in Dibs?
So South Africa battled to 191 in their first innings in the first test against Sri Lanka at the end of a slightly extended first session. The sun is shining after no play, of course, was possible after lunch at all yesterday. But that hasn't made things any easier for the team, even though, as I said, by all accounts, it should have been better for the batters than it was yesterday. It's a rather dismal-looking scorecard, apart from a composed 70 from returning captain Themba Bavuma. Keshav Maharaj was the next highest scorer with 24. Of slight concern also is Veern Mulder left the field for a while after being hit on the right hand. They are still on their lunch break because of the extra overs played at the end of that first session. In other cricket news, New Zealand closed day one on 319 for 8 in the first test against England in Wellington. Pakistan have reached 222 for 3 after 43 overs in the third ODI against Zimbabwe in Harare. And the England women have produced a top performance to crush the Proteas women by 36 runs in the second T20 in Benoni, and that means they secure the 3-game series with a match to play. Batting first, half centuries from Danny White, Hodge and Nat Skyver-Brunt powered England to 204 for 4 in their 20 overs before Sarah Glenn led the bowling effort, picking up 4 for 20 to help restrict the Proteas to 168 for 6 in response. Turning to soccer, there were 2 matches in the Betway Premiership yesterday. Kaizer Chiefs returned to winning ways by defeating Richards Bay 2-1 in Polokwane. Despite playing most of the game with 10 men, Amakosi scored through Wandile Duba and Ashley Dupree. Tami Mkize netted the goal that gave Cape Town City a 1-0 win over Polokwane City. Stellenbosch made their debut in the group stage of the CAF Confed Cup, and it didn't go so well. They fell to a 2-0 defeat to Mali's Stade Malien. Algerian club CS Constantine produced the surprise of matchday 1, winning 1-0 away against CS Sfaxian in Tunisia. In Europe, Kylian Mbappe saw a penalty saved as Liverpool beat Real Madrid 2-0 to inflict a third Champions League defeat in 5 matches on the holders. Alexis McAllister and Cody Gakpo scored, keeping Arne Slot's team at the top of the table.
I think it's always good to win a game, and especially a big game like this, because you know you face so many quality players. For me, it would even mean more if we go into the later stages of the tournament, because this is such a strange and different setup in the Champions League that yeah, it's difficult to judge how important these wins are if we arrive in the last 16 or quarterfinals or wherever we can arrive to, and we face them again. And
Aston Villa were controversially denied a last gasp winner as they played out to a goalless draw with Juventus. PSV Eindhoven staged a dramatic comeback against 10-man Shakhtar Donetsk to win 3-2. Borussia Dortmund won 3-0 at Dynamo Zagreb, while Girona lost 1-0 at Sturm Graz. Jean Lukumi scored Bologna's first goal of the Champions League, but they fell to a 2-1 home defeat by Lille. Tonight it's the turn of the UEFA Europa League. News from England is that Leicester City are about to announce Ruud van Nistelrooy as their new head coach. He was let go from Manchester United despite stepping up as caretaker after Erik ten Hag was fired. Leicester axed Steve Cooper on Sunday after a poor run of form that sees them lie 16th on the table. Banyana have two more matches this year against Jamaica in Montego Bay. The first is tomorrow. They have arrived after a long journey and only have a day to get rid of tiredness and jet lag. Bongeka Kamede is in the squad again and made the trip from her club in Denmark.
I think our plan is just to focus planning for AFCON and make sure that we learn as lot as we can, since we're going to go to the tournament, and we know the tournament won't be easy since we are defending champions, but games like this are the ones that are going to prepare us to do well in the AFCON games. So I think this is going to be a good test.
The new Rugby 7 season opens this weekend in Dubai. The Blitzboks have arrived, and Tristan Leeds says he's ready to make his debut in Dubai when they play against Australia, France and Kenya.
Being in Dubai now is still gives me that opportunity, that excitement, that it's still my first time there. Although the guys on the other teams have seen me play, but now that we're here, I can express myself, and usually going or being at a venue for the first time, it gives that extra excitement and just wants you to kind of give it your best and be a performer at the end of the day.
In 15s rugby, the Springboks will welcome Italy, Georgia, Australia and Argentina to South Africa in 2025, with next year's rugby fixtures all confirmed, barring the end-of-year tour. Italy will visit South Africa for the first time since 2013 for 2 tests, and Georgia will come for another during the July window. The Boks will start the defence of their rugby championship crown against the Wallabies on consecutive weekends in August. Away tests against the All Blacks in New Zealand follow before the Boks wrap up the Rugby Championship home and away against Argentina. Other news from rugby is that Jaco Peyper will oversee a new SA Rugby Elite Referees panel, which is designed specifically to help South African officials make the step up to officiating international matches. In golf, Charles Schwartzel is on 8 under alongside American Peter Uihlein at the top of the leaderboard at the International Series Qatar. That's on the Asian Tour. Louis Oosthuizen and Ian Sneeman are a shot back, one better than Dean Burmester. Lucas Herbert shot a 63 to lead after the first round of the Australian Open. That's part of the DP World Tour. And finally, you may have heard about the upcoming special golf showdown between the US PGA Tour and Live Golf. It seems Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are up against Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau in a made-for-TV event. And the latest news is the prize money, $10 million in cryptocurrency, because those 4 players have money, you know. Really.
How do they cope?
$10 million. I don't like cryptocurrency, but if somebody wants to give me $10 million in crypto, I'll take it.
I'm okay with that. It's better than watching a YouTuber beat up a 58-year-old man, though.
This is definitely true. Yeah. Very definitely true.
I just want to go back to the box quickly. They're playing Italy, Georgia, and Australia. Ach, shame, man.
You're putting Australia with Georgia.
Imagine being an Italian or a Georgian rugby player and you just saw that announced today and you know, my summer is just ruined. Shame. They got to get in a plane. They got to come fly to cold Johannesburg and play against the Springboks. It's okay. Can you imagine?
It's okay. I'll take it.
They're not earning $10 million though. All right.
No, they don't.
Jana Witten, thank you very much. More with Janet again bright and early tomorrow morning. There's sport throughout the afternoon here in SAFM.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer,
Think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Everybody needs an island adventure. Think about it. White sandy beaches, tall coconut trees, the sun shining down on you. Moments that will have you singing, when the water's so blue. Well, this is no typical island adventure. 18 contestants will spend 39 days on the island of the idols, strategizing, backstabbing, forging and breaking alliances. Here, their meals aren't guaranteed. They eat what they catch. One mistake or betrayal might get them kicked off the island. It's a battle for $1 million on Survivor 39. Channel your best reality with Survivor Season 39. Island of the Idols, Thursdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theater of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Just about 1:45. Let's take some voice notes. 082-692-3909.
Good day. Bishop Makwana from Lebogo, Zone F. You know, Herika, our country has plunged itself into self-inflicted, self-staged false pretenses on its own. Because I mean, look at how now we have these funded NGOs by terrorism organizations, by criminals, by those that are anti-constitutional, those that are not in the interest of South Africa, they are anti-South Africa. They are beginning to go to court to push our government to the edge. The government can't do its functions because of these organizations. That has to stop. We need to change the government now.
Good afternoon, John. I think the SAPC should do justice to the people of Namibia and stop reporting on the side of the opposition party, as it was the case during the South African elections when SAPC was clearly in support of the opposition parties against the ANC. They've done also in Botswana by supporting the party of Boko against the former governing party. And they even going far and saying, no, the former governing party in Botswana was a former freedom firefighter party. Although in history, Botswana never have any fight against the independence or something. That party was voted by the people of that country during the independence of Botswana party. The General SAPC have continued to say Botswana, former freedom fighter party, lost elections, although that party is not a party that fought for independence, but to attain independence. Thank you. This is TJ.
Afternoon, Sean. This country is bullied by criminals. It's worse, even the academics are bullying the country. When they are defending their wrongdoings, their scapegoat is racism and apartheid. I was listening to Dr. Hlope. We are going nowhere. Lawlessness, no accountability, jails are hotels, corruption all over. It's worse at the borders, home affairs, police. Thank you, John.
Those are your voice notes. Thank you very much. You can also send through now if you want on 082-692-3909.
Don Gerika on SAFM.
Let's go to neighbours now. A political standoff in Mozambique has intensified. This is the expected meeting with the 4 presidential candidates to resolve the post-election crisis was postponed. Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi convened the meeting with Daniel Chapo from Frelimo, Osufo Mamade of Renamo, Lerato Simango from Mozambique Democratic and Independent candidate, and Vocancio Mondlane. However, Mondlane, who was supposed to attend the meeting virtually, didn't, claiming his conditions weren't met. Bonolo Mariba has more.
The Mozambican leaders could not continue with the meeting, as Venancio Mondlane, who is believed to be in exile, did not attend the session. The neighboring country was pushed into the headlines after the results of the 9th October elections was called into question. Frelimo's Daniel Chapo was declared the winner. But Mondlane called for demonstrations, saying the elections were rigged. The director of the Center for Democracy and Human Rights, Adriano Nuvunga, says the people want a solution.
The situation in the streets is chaotic. It resembles a civil war in the urban area, precisely in Maputo, where you have seen that the heavily armed military vehicles are crossing over protesters, but also people attacking, military vehicles are being bent, tires everywhere, no one can enter and exit Maputo. So it is really chaos, and attempts to organize such a dialogue amidst of this chaos, it seems to be an entertaining people that will not lead into resolving the current crisis.
Deputy Assistant Commissioner of Communications and Marketing at the Border Management Authority, Meme Mogotsi, says they are keeping a close eye on the situation at the Limpopo port of entry between South Africa and Mozambique.
The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, has said the restrictions on the Mozambican side have affected operations at the Limpopo port of entry, impacting the movement of trucks in particular. The BMA officials are able to process pedestrians and small vehicles for movement in and out of Libombo port of entry.
Recently, SADC leaders held a meeting where they vowed to support Mozambicans finding a solution and restore peace in Maputo. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Let's get more on this. We're joined on the line by social and political activist, Women Observatory Director, Quiteria Gerangani. Quiteria, thank you very much for joining us. Anti-government protests, security forces clashing across the country yesterday. 2 people killed. How would you describe the situation currently?
Mozambique is becoming a chaos, and it's time now for solidarity, the same way that our people has joined together fighting for apartheid and joined together fighting for freedom. Once again, Mozambican people is asking for support. It was not 2 people killed. We had people killed in Maputo. We're still processing the numbers, but there are allegations that 8 people were killed yesterday in Nampula province, and more than 30 have been in a hospital, has been wounded by the defense forces. And there are so many other peoples around all the 11 provinces of Mozambique who are being killed only for demanding the truth of elections. We never expected that the truth of election would cost so highly for people of Mozambique after fighting for long years against oppression, for independence and for freedom. We have a lot of people, more than 5,000 people now being detained in different parts of the provinces. There are people who have been released, but once again, there are people being detained because of these protests. People have started peaceful protests demanding the truth, and once again, the defense forces is coming, and special police forces is coming to promote violence. And many times people are just trying to defend themselves. For instance, people protesting yesterday in the city of Maputo were run over by a armored car. And we ask ourselves, what are world cars doing in the city of Maputo? And this is not the first incident about running over people who are protesting. A week ago, we had in 4 different places of Maputo cars without a number plate running over protesters. And this is what is making this protest that has started peacefully a violent protest. And we are under the 16 days of activism for the end of violence against women. And during these very periods, women are being killed in the in Mozambique, all over the country. And we need to stop now. We need to start reconciliating. We need to start a peaceful process. And SADC, once again, has responsibility, the same way that South Africa's economy is being affected because of this process. It's time now for South Africa. It's time now for all the leaders to show solidarity, but not solidarity to the government, but solidarity for the people of Mozambique.
Recently, SADC leaders had that meeting to find solutions. What came out of that?
Came out nothing for us as the people of Mozambique. We feel so offended when we see some SADC leaders coming publicly and congratulating Mr. Chapo for a victory he didn't achieve. It's like some of SADC leaders are being accomplices of the murder of several people in Mozambique. When they come, instead of having a neutral role and looking for approach that reconciliate the country, they are putting more fire on the process. They are putting more fuel on the process by congratulating someone that all the country are getting together to say that he was not elected, that the election were rigged, and there are details to prove that the opposition leader has won the election. And this is something that is bringing together all Mozambicans. But also, SADC cannot only come and say that we trust Mozambique to solve this issue or that we will help Mozambique to solve this issue. We need concrete agenda. We need solidarity for the people. We need SADC to come together and say Mozambique is not in peace. We need to start demanding the institutions in Mozambique to regain confidence of the people. If Mozambique is in the Security Council of the United Nations, if Mozambique occupies a specific role in SADC and in the concept of the nation, instead of bringing more militaries, because there are allegations of militaries from another country coming to fight against the people of Mozambique, there is now a need to stop and say, this protest is going over for more than a month, and we need to start asking the people of Mozambique what they want. If the sovereignty resides in the people, it's now time to stop the guns, and instead of using the arguments of force, start using the force of the arguments to discuss and to find a common ground to solve the situation of Mozambique.
That attempted meeting with those four presidential candidates was postponed because of that, the lack of the agreements of conditions. So will they get back together again?
No one would go for a meeting that is only to take a picture for international community to see that the president has intention for dialogue, while in the very same process, the candidate who all Mozambican people believe won election, he has more than 5 processes is being prosecuted. This person is being accused of this collapsing Mozambican economy. Like the time Venancio Mondlane arrives to Mozambique, or he will be collected to prison, or he will be killed. The same way that Frelimo is not being accountable for the murder of the lawyer of this candidate, of the murder of the electoral representative of this candidate. We cannot disassociate the murder of these people and the murder of all these people and the silence amongst the ruling party on what really happened. When a police was murdered by the protesters because of murdering a child, they ran quickly and arrested people for this killing. But when activists, when political people engaged in politics are killed, there is never an answer. That's why people don't trust in institutions. That's why people believe that institutions are being controlled. So in order for this dialogue to really happen, first condition needs to be agreed. And the first condition is to allow Venancio Mondlane to have conditions to come to Mozambique or to participate in this dialogue from abroad, and also to assure that people who are invited, I would say that I'm suspected to talk about it because I am one of the person proposed in this list to be part of the dialogue for the reconciliation process. But as Mozambicans, we don't feel a genuine trustable intention of dialogue if this dialogue is not grounded in condition and principles that are sure that the truth but also a reconciliation process will come out of it.
Terry, we've got to wrap up, but who is running the security forces currently, these heavy-handed security forces?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Who is running the heavy-handed security forces at the moment?
We have the police running these heavy forces. We can say that there is this special unity of police called UR. We have the group of special operation of police. But worse than that, we have an identified guys who come to streets with guns, with AKPMs who are shooting against people, but no one has their identities. They just come dressed as civilians. Some of us say that it's the criminal investigation police, other people saying that it's secret services, but we never saw anywhere in the world how they dare to come to people's houses and shoot against people only because they knew that this person yesterday was chanting a pen or this person yesterday was protesting peacefully. And this is what concerns us the most, is that military forces are supporting citizens. They are saying that we will not shoot against our people because we believe that we need a true reconciliation process. But there are those people we call that they are normally related to the same people who have been kidnapping business people in Mozambique, who are being killing as business. That is the very same faces that we see showing up. Identified as police.
Kateria, we need to leave it there. Activist Kateria Garangane, a social and political activist and Women Observatory Director.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Let's go to the other side of the border. The Electoral Commission of Namibia says it's overwhelmed by the record number of Namibians who turned out to cast their votes yesterday. Commission had to make arrangements to allow voters who were at polling stations to cast their ballots after 9 o'clock last night. Challenges of shortage of ballot papers in some polling stations also contributed to delays. Commission issued a statement allowing those in the queues to be processed. Counting's ongoing in some polling stations. Results expected to trickle in today. We were hoping to speak to SABC correspondent Nixon Tasakana, who is keeping an eye on that. It'll be fascinating to see how many ballots were cast. I read a number that there were only 1 million people that were going to be voting in Namibia. There's not many people that live in the country. Also, it's one of those ongoing issues, and SWAPO's involved there. It'll be interesting to see how South Africa's involved. Will the ANC Secretary General saying the party will continue supporting SWAPO in Namibia. So although it's happening in a foreign country, it very much affects us here as well, and massive trade or trade with Namibia, borders that are open with Namibia, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of state relations happen between South Africa and Namibia as well. SWAPO getting a victory. What would that mean for the Namibian on the streets? We were hoping to get hold of Nixon Tsakana there. There is a story we ran out of time, so I'm just going to mention it. In the Eastern Cape, there are reports of gruesome incidents where young boys attack and kill each other during a pre-circumcision ceremony known as umguyo. Since the start of the summer initiation season, 3 separate killings have been reported in the Eastern Cape. 2 of the victims have been buried last weekend. Another one will be buried this coming Saturday. So that's an ongoing story that we'll keep an eye on as well. And the illegal miners, that's not a story that's going away. 1,300 miners have emerged since the operation by the police began on August the 18th. They've been stuck down that 2-kilometer deep shaft mine. So plenty of other stories that we're keeping an eye on. We'll have another updates after midday tomorrow. Plenty news here on SAFM as we progress. Thanks to the team for putting the show together. I'm John Gericke. It's 1 o'clock.
Thank you, John and the team. Top stories at 1. Severe storm in Randfontein leave families homeless, and Johannesburg water disconnects illegal water connections. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. About 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's East Rand yesterday. Several areas, including Dukomsras, Greenfields Estate and the Umphakathi Mall, were affected. More than 20 people were injured and received medical attention at nearby healthcare facilities. Randfontein Executive Mayor William Macheke says that displaced families have been provided with shelter and food.
Communities of Dukomsras, majority of them, they did not want to be moved to other areas of shelter. We are working jointly with the Gauteng provincial government as well as the National Department of Human Settlement as the custodian of disaster management within the country. We have stabilized the problem, and we are continuously checking with other business people around the area on areas where they can be able to assist us, because majority of people that are affected in Dukomsras, they don't have insurance.
Johannesburg Water says it's working with law enforcement agencies to disconnect illegal water connections in different areas of the city. This as Johannesburg experiences severe water shortages, which the water utility has partly attributed to illegal connections and aging infrastructure. This has sparked protests in communities. In Westbury, Coronationville and surrounding areas, residents took to the streets yesterday over water shortages. Johannesburg Water's operations manager, Logan Munsami, told the media that disconnecting illegal water connections had saved them at least 25 million litres per day.
Last week alone, we disconnected 12 hijacked or bad buildings in the CBD. This week alone, we've disconnected 8 hijacked buildings. And these are all buildings that have been taken over, invaded, or left in a terrible state where there's leaks and bursts and wastage and there's no accountability.
The lead investigator in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, Bongani Gininda, has once again told the High Court in Pretoria that there was communication between the soccer star's former girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo, and accused number 3, Mthobisi Mncube. Gininda is answering questions under cross-examination. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain. Responding to Defense Counsel Charles Mnisi, Gininda says Khumalo and Mncube are linked through a photo downloaded from both their phones.
On the 8th of November 2024, when you were being cross-examined by Mr. Ramusipili, this is what you said, my lord. So the other aspect that I did not touch on is that there is the report that I got, and it is contained in one of Colonel Stein's statements. There's a link between, let me say, communication between Ms. Kelly Khumalo and accused number 3.
I've said there is a link, not a communication. I think where we seem to not to be finding each other with Advocate Mnisi is when he uses the term linkages.
The Electoral Reform Consultation Panel is urging South Africans to take part in reforming the country's electoral system. The panel has been tasked with investigating, consulting and making recommendations. This is with respect to the broad rules governing the manner in which the citizens select their leaders and how power is subsequently distributed among contestants at all levels of government. After soliciting and receiving hundreds of submissions, the panel has published a discussion paper as the foundation for public hearings early next year. The document also outlines the key terms and concepts related to electoral system. Tomzi Dlamini is a panel member.
We're really pleading with every South African to please come out, especially the citizens. You know, when we also come out to the provinces, please do come out. I know it sounds like a technical subject, but the way we have simplified it and the way it is going to take place is going to be okay for people to participate, even though they might not know everything about electoral system. Just making your input. What is it that you like? What frustrates you? What irks you? What is it that you want to see?
Energy experts say South Africa can learn a lot from India in addressing its energy challenges. The Wits Business School, in collaboration with the Consulate General of India, is hosting an energy conference in Johannesburg. The 2-day conference has brought together industry leaders and academics from South Africa and India to engage on shared and divergent energy challenges. Professor Maurice Hadebe is the head of the Wits Business School.
Energy is our only currency right now.
And it's so critical for economic development, particularly of the global south. And that is why today is a gathering of two nations, India and South Africa. Energy leaders, energy experts, energy professionals, energy business leaders are gathering here at WITS to discuss this whole energy transition from high carbon economy to low carbon economy. This is a massive change in the world. So that's what so it needs a lot of thinking. So we've got academics here who are actually about how do we do it, so that we don't do it in such a way that it disrupts, causes more poverty, and it leaves a lot of people behind.
Recapping the top story, about 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's East Rand yesterday. I am Ondilambona for SAFM News. Headlines at 1:30.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I was recently diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome. Patients like myself go through a long and strenuous journey to get a stem cell transplant. I am grateful for the support I've received as I wait for the call that my donor has been found. This Sunflower Month, be a lifeline to patients like myself by registering to become a stem cell donor. You can save a life by registering at dkmsafrica.org.
The Bees are constantly seeking for a suitable way to move up to the top half. They want to triumph against Leicester City FC.
Visser is in here for Brentford. Johan Visser!
While the Foxes are committed to playing attractive football for 90 minutes as they also eye a top half spot.
Ayew into Vardy, back to Ayew, scores! Leicester have done it late on the road! Jordan Ayew sweeps home! What a move!
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Brentford FC and Leicester City FC on Saturday, 30 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is Saki featuring Black Coffee on this one. Uthando Lwam is the name of the song, and they've been really good friends and collaborators in the recent past. She's coming through with a brand new show in December, and I think tickets for that have fast sold out. In fact, she was on the station a couple of weeks ago talking around that particular project. She's back from her travels in the US, and she's ready and geared up to take it to the stage. Good afternoon to you. Hope that you are having a good day. It's a beautiful day in Johannesburg. I do hope the weather is holding up in your part of the country. I know a lot of people experienced some devastating weather last night, particularly in Randfontein. There was reports of just horrific freak storms in that area that were wreaking havoc and left a lot of homes actually just destroyed, collapsing entire walls, entire roofs, and leaving families desperate to salvage, the brick and mortar structures. So if you were affected by those freak storms last night in Randfontein, we're sending out our prayers to you, and hopefully there'll be some swift intervention. And considering as well that we're just a few days away from December, and a lot of people have plans to gather with family, over a good meal, share memories and laughter. And so you don't want to be dealing with having to now fix your home because of a freak storm at this time of the year. No one's got budget for that right now. So if you are in Randfontein and you happen to experience those storms yesterday, I hope that there's some swift intervention to help you and the community. We've got a lot of show today. We are going to be catching up with the folks from the Real Queer Talk, and we're talking around a campaign that they've got happening at the moment. And this is looking at intimate partner violence, particularly in the LGBTQI plus community. And there's some really just disturbing data that has come out of a recent study that they'll unpack for us. Stages, pages, screens, and more is also coming up today. A swinging Christmas. We are getting slowly but swiftly into the festive mood, and so we're going to be bringing you some programming that is centered around that. So for Stages, Pages, Screens, and More, Swinging Christmas, it's a festive concert, and it's billed as a festive concert spectacular. So we'll find out more what's in store there for you. And then, of course, we're going to have a conversation around pens down. It's that time of the year where pens down and pens down rages are all the thing. Just this morning, I happened to catch the Minister of Basic Education, Zviwe Khwahube. She was talking about exactly that we need to start having this conversation about pens down and the implications that has on our young children, particularly when it comes to underage drinking and reckless behavior. Of course, she was sharing as well on just the state of the examinations and everything that's going to unfold in the next coming weeks, and as far as the results are concerned. But also top of the agenda was the concern for our young students who partake in the pens down rituals and all the end of year rages. And part and parcel with that is the consumption of alcohol. So we're going to have that conversation on the show. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Bees are constantly seeking for a suitable way to move up to the top half. They want to triumph against Leicester City FC.
He's in here for Brentford. Johan Visser!
While the Foxes are committed to playing attractive football for 90 minutes as they also eye a top half spot.
Owen to Vardy, back to Iron scores! Lathrop done it late on the road! Jordan Iron sweeps home! What a move!
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular clash between Brentford FC and Leicester City FC on Saturday, 30 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Our first guest now is Tulu Mutawung joining us, who is the campaign coordinator for this campaign against intimate partner violence. It is the 2024 edition of the campaign looking at intimate partner violence amongst the LGBTQI plus community, and the Real Queer Table, which is a platform that's dedicated to having conversations on pertinent issues within the community, is really championing, empowering this campaign, and also opening the door and inviting us all to be a part and parcel of the solutions. Tulu, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. How are you?
I'm keeping well, Bridget. I trust that you're also good, and thank you so much for hosting me, and good day to your listeners as well.
I'm great. Thank you so much. Now, I just gave a very sort of simplistic introduction into the Real Queer Talk. But before we get into, the campaign and, of course, the motivation behind it and some of the studies that have fueled the birth of this campaign, give us a bit of background on the work that the Real Queer Talk platform undertakes.
Okay, so the Real Queer Talk, it's actually a YouTube channel that we established, basically dedicated, to facilitating discussions that focus on pertinent issues around the LGBTQI plus community. Really looking at how do we talk or discuss issues that matter, that the community is challenged with, but also, putting the spotlight to the queer people that are making strides and are changing the world in many ways, in a positive way, and those that are really leading in their industries where they operate in, because that is not done much. You are aware that as a marginalized group, we don't get opportunities to shine as much as we'd like to, or to be seen, or to be acknowledged with the kind of contribution that we make in various spaces that we operate in. So we host different guests every week, but basically, profiling them, their experiences, their lives, and with the hope that can also educate the entire society of who we are as a queer people, because also one of the things that we've seen is that media has taken some of the few personalities that are in the media space, and they sort of put them as the template of what should a gay person look like, what should a lesbian look like. But really in our community we are very much diverse, and we've got, for example, people that work as lawyers, people that work as engineers, as miners, people that work as in the media space, in fashion and those kind of spaces. So that's basically what the Real Queer Talk focuses on. But further to that, we run different campaigns to engage people on personal level, on face-to-face level as well, but also raising awareness on issues that matter, that actually needs attention, not only from the queer community but also from the society at large, because whatever affects a person affects their family, affects their colleagues, affects any other person that they get in contact with.
Absolutely. And speaking of those pertinent issues, I mean, we've just entered 16 days of activism against women and child abuse. And of course, this conversation is always centered around the lens of heteronormative women and child abuse. But very important to cast the eye as well on what this conversation means to the LGBTQI plus community.
Yes. So it has been a bone of contention for us because there's a study that was done titled "Examining Gender and Sexual Orientation Differences in Physical Intimate Partner Violence Experienced and Perpetrated by Youth Living in eThekwini District here in South Africa," and this was done during. I think it's the one that really drew our attention to us to say, but now we need to pay attention, because the findings indicated that over 1 in 6 youth experience and 1 in 10 perpetrated physical IPV or intimate partner violence. Right, and then it further indicated that with gender and sexual non-conforming youth experiencing and perpetrating IPV, the rates are significantly higher or greater, right? And then that said, okay, now we need to pay attention to say why, when you have to compare to what usually we call straight people and then people that we say they're LGBTQI plus, why is it then more rife on this side than the other, right? And truly, it is because of various factors to that. And we have seen in the previous years where, even in the news where we heard of, prominent couples that one was saying, I was abused in my relationship, but we also saw others that unfortunately it got to be fatal there, and friends were saying, no, we've actually seen this happening, and all of that. And in my observation personally as well, in spaces that I've been in, you see that it happens, but we don't talk about it. We don't call each other out. And that then said, but then we need to pay attention to say, how then do we manage this this challenge? Because then for other people, they grew up in environments where it has been a norm. For them, it is a norm. But then they need to be educated to say, this is not right? But also how it plays out, particularly for the victims. It gets to them in a way that they don't expect, because it's a journey to get there.
Speaking about sort of, the perceptions around intimate partner violence in the community, let's touch a little bit around the stigma, around talking about these experiences, especially if one is in a same-sex relationship, because they always seems to be this connotation of people saying, well, you can deal with it, especially if it's 2 gay men, you can deal with it. It's 2 dudes. If it's a lesbian couple, well, you can deal with it. It's 2 women, and that speaks to a different societal expectation and tolerance for same-sex couples as far as them experiencing intimate partner violence.
That is quite correct. So the general perception, as you correctly put it, is that because I'm a gay man and I'm in a romantic relationship with another gay man, therefore, because I experienced it in 2020, and one of the comments that was made by someone was, but why didn't you fight back? You're also a dude, right? And my question was that going to be helpful? Was that going to solve anything? Is it a way of solving challenges in a relationship, right? And it's the same with lesbian couples. where people will say the same thing. But at the same time, you also have the dynamics of toxic masculinity, because as a feminine guy, and I am involved with a masculine, in terms of the physique, who's maybe taller than me, bigger than. I won't even take a chance, to try and fight them back, So it's things like that also we need to take into consideration. But I think beyond everything else, violence is not a solution, and for the society or other people to look at it from that perspective of saying, but you are the same gender, you can, fight it off or work it out in that way. It's not a solution. But then beyond that, talking about the issue of actually being vocal about it or talking about it, there are factors like shame that comes with it. Because, for example, in my case, I couldn't even tell my cousins or because it was a matter of, as much as I know they love me and support me, also you're thinking, the society will be judging from a perspective of, you see now you're involved with another man. Maybe if you were with a woman, things could have been different, right? Yeah. And also the shame of being a victim as well, in terms of how are people going to look at you? They're going to judge you of the choice that you made to be dating this person who is abusive. So you find that you don't talk about it from that perspective. So and also I think as a society in general, we don't talk about such important issues, and probably because we don't even know how to tackle them, or we don't even know in terms of how are we going to deal with the perpetrators, how are we going to deal with the victims. Because as a queer person, as a victim, if I have to go to a police station, they don't even know how to manage my case. The other day I was to a lesbian person who's a police officer, and she was sharing with us that every time they have such a case, they call her, because it's that you will know how to deal with it. Yeah. So they're not trained to manage such.
Yeah. Tulu, we have to leave it there for this afternoon, but I think it's been a great gateway into a very important conversation that hopefully will continue to cast the lens on the importance of, inviting into these places of safety and places of community dialogue, the LGBTQI plus community as part of just broader South African society, to have these important chats about issues that affect us all. That was Tulu Mutawung, and of course the Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Campaign kicked off yesterday. It's just gone 1:30. Ondela standing by with the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, about 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's West Rand yesterday. Johannesburg Water says it's working with law enforcement agencies to disconnect illegal water connections in different areas of the city, and at least 13 people have been killed in a landslide in eastern Uganda. However, officials fear that the number of those who died is much higher, as at least 40 houses were swept away. And full update follows at the top of the hour.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Imagine if every child born today and tomorrow and the next day and the next had enough love, enough food, enough safety, and brain power. Today and tomorrow and the next day and the next. Together, we will change our future. Visit holdmyhand.org.za.
Stages, pages, screens, and more. With Bridget Masinga.
Actually, before we even get into stages, pages, screens, and more, where do you stand on your children, going off and partaking in these matric rages? and these pens down parties. What's your sentiment? What's your feeling around that as a parent and a guardian? 061-410-4107, 086-000-2032. Is it something you'd let them do, allow them to do it knowingly with all of your blessings, to go off and partake in these matric year-end rages and pens down parties? Or it's something that maybe you did when you were younger and you completely know what goes on there, the underage drinking, the salacious sexual behaviors, I don't know, and perhaps you are just thinking that because you've been there and you know what happens, you'd rather your kids steer far, far, far away from such things. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. All right, let's go back to stages, pages, screens, and more, and we're talking a swinging Christmas. It is a festive concert spectacular with Harry Sideropoulos joining us now, who is one of the headline vocalists. How are you doing this afternoon, Harry?
Hey, to the lady with the beautiful voice. How are you?
Listen, it doesn't get better than yours, that's for sure.
I'm well.
I'm good, Harry. Thank you so much for taking the time. Let's talk about this. So, 4 shows only at Carnival City's Big Top Arena. This is a marker that the Christmas season is upon us now, a swinging Christmas.
It's a swinging Christmas indeed. Literally 6 months ago, we had finished with Swinging Las Vegas at Monte Cassino's Theatre with the Johannesburg Big Band. And Christmas and swing has always been synonymous with my heart. I've always loved it. And it started last year with Swingle Bells, which is one of the shows that Howard Events put together. And they decided, we got to keep doing this. And that is why it is back this year, of different version, big band swing music. It's lovely, it's naughty, it's for the whole family, it's playful, it's all the things that make you happy, and most importantly with an 18-piece big band. That's spectacular. We've got first of all, I'm so excited to be working with Zwei Mbala.
Yes.
I've worked with his brother Logisa, but never with Zwei. Then there's Kurt Darren, there's Monique Stain, and I'm thrilled to be performing with Mzansi Choir. Mzansi Choir, baby. I'm very excited.
Well, listen, you sound absolutely excited, and I think you're definitely putting that same energy to us. Beautiful lineup, beautiful headliners there. Zwei Mbala, I know he always does the most with the vocals, as well as, I don't know if he's going to be working in a capacity as music director at some point as well. He's quite great, and a lot of people don't know just how much fun Kirk Darren is. In my previous life as a TV presenter, I got to spend a lot of time with Kirk Darren, and he brings a certain kind of energy to a stage.
I love Kurt Darren, and I love his music. He makes me happy, and he's a wonderful human being.
Yes.
And I think what's so fabulous is to be able to work with a wonderful ensemble, because sometimes you work with people, and you're not always mad about them. What's wonderful about all the work that I've been doing with the Johannesburg Big Band is I have loved working with these guys. And you know what's so wonderful is that it's so important to start celebrating local talent. And I think we have shifted there, but it's still whatever comes from overseas has more gravitas.
Yeah.
But no, we've got amazing talent. We have a wonderful energy, and I've just come back from overseas. I spent 3 months performing overseas in Europe, and I came back and I went, you know what? Yes, amazing performers around the world, but you know what we have here in South Africa? We have this energy, this rawness, which is the same rawness that literally blew away the Britain's Got Talent judges. When they see Africans perform, we as Africans, and specifically as South Africans, there's a rawness to us, and that rawness is magnificent because we give it all. And I can't explain it, but it really is when a South African performer walks on that stage, as we say, he hoys. He gives you, she gives you everything. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing. And most importantly, audiences have to come because they're going to see me dressed in sequins. I am wearing so much sequins, they're going to see me literally in Bloemfontein. That's how much sequins I'm wearing.
You are going to be shining all the way to the moon. I love it. So on the night, in as far as the musical elements of it, right? So what are we expecting? What kind of genres? What kind of people like to sing along and be part of, sort of the festive concert? So I'm pretty sure whatever you've put down by way of the music is all stuff that we know and stuff that we love.
It's exactly that. And what we've done is we've also taken some very well-known songs that are pop Christmas songs, but we've interpreted them in a big band, Michael Bublé swing kind of way. There's, when you're dealing with a genre of swing, which has obviously its roots in jazz, we are able to take songs like White Christmas. We're able to take songs like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but we can really make it funny and sassy. So it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a shiny nose. You know what I mean? So we're able to take songs like Santa Baby. Okay, and make it fun and playful. And of course, all the beautiful songs that a lot of the kids have been brought up listening to. We're taking all of that stuff, we're putting it in a huge washing machine of talent, and we are dishing it out to you. And it's songs that you will absolutely know. And I can't tell you more than this, but there is an element in the show which is completely interactive with the audience. It is very, very funny, because most importantly, it's a South African Christmas. So we have found ways of celebrating our South Africanness. And don't get me wrong, I love the fact that it's a white Christmas in Europe and in America and in Canada. Yes, I love it. But guys, this is Joburg, this is Gauteng, this is South Africa. And how do we celebrate Christmas? Braai, choppies, all right, and slip-slops and the pool. Let's be honest, all right?
Absolutely.
So that's how we are celebrating it, but now on stage and with some sequence.
Oh, never forgetting the sequence. I love it. So a swinging Christmas is going to be on at the Big Top Arena at Carnival City, and it's a one weekend only, Saturday and Sunday, the 14th and the 15th of December, which is great because that's the big weekend just before everybody goes off into their risk, because we're all migrant laborers in this province. So before everybody goes off, we are at the Big Top.
And you know what? It's also what we've done because we want the kids to come. We've made times that are very accessible to everyone. And I remember, she's an American, Jamie Lee Curtis said in an interview, she said, I'm a huge fan of Coldplay. Why does Coldplay not do concerts during the day? And we love that concept. So we have got on both performances, we have a 12 o'clock and a 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So at 12 o'clock midday, which means that you can go then in the afternoon and have your late lunch. And then we also have a 4 o'clock, which wraps up at around 7, which allows the whole evening for you to do whatever you want to do. And if the kids need to go home and sleep. So we've really looked at the times that we're not doing traditional evening show times. We're doing daytime shows.
Wonderful. I love those time channels. Well, listen, we look forward to it. It sounds like a great night out. It is a swinging Christmas with Harry Sidiropoulos, and of course a whole host of headliners, the likes of Kurt Darren, Swaibala Mzansi, a youth choir coming through, Monique Stein. It's going to be lovely, and not forgetting that Harry is going to be in sequence for most of the night.
I'm in sequence, baby!
So he's going to be a glowing ball, and you can get your tickets from Web Tickets or any Pick and Pay outlet, and they range from 390 to 550 rands. Harry, thank you so much for bringing the Christmas cheer, and all the very best with the live shows that are coming out Saturday the 14th and Sunday the 15th of December. So perhaps that will be something wonderful for you and the family to book and get to doing as a way of signaling the fact that we are in the Christmas spirit now. And those show times again, 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So 2 days, two shows over the 2 days, and you can definitely check out Web Tickets to get your ticket. That was Harry Sidiropoulos. Always a vibe, a swinging Christmas, a festive concert, spectacular. Definitely sounds like an afternoon worthy of you going out to see it. Speaking of afternoons that are worthy, because we thought we'd segue ourselves into how we are spending money. And this is a good way for us to get into that conversation around Black Friday deals and debt. Let's take a quick pause, and then we'll come back and we have that conversation.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We're catching up now with Dehan Sherman, who is a quality control and compliance manager with the National Debt Advisor. Black Friday deals are upon us, and so we thought we'd just touch base. You know, on this show, we sort of encourage responsible decision making, or at least we attempt to keep you on track in as far as, your family finances are concerned. And so, let's have a look at Black Friday deals versus debt, and how do you stay in control during these tough times. But you must carve out some money for that swinging Christmas festive concert, because it sounds like it's something that's definitely worth you going to see. But Dehan, how are you doing today?
Good. And yourself?
I'm great. Thank you so much. You know what? This year, I've completely lost track of Black Friday. I think I've been asking for the last 3 weeks now. When is Black Friday? And I gather Black Friday week, because in South Africa, it seems like it's more like a week, it begins now, round about this time.
Yeah, and Black Friday is actually tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a Friday.
It's a Friday. And I think part of the sentiment is the fact that it seems as though, there's no real excitement around it from a consumerism perspective, but also we don't really have money as South Africans to spend anyway.
Yeah, so if you look at just what's happened in the last month or two, I mean, the interest rates have declined slightly.
Yeah.
Which means people are going to start having a bit more money to spend. Whether or not they see that money this year or not, that's still to be seen. But Black Friday, essentially, it creates this perception that you're going to save a lot of money if you spend a lot of money, which doesn't make much sense, does it? I mean, spending money, saving money, how can you save when you spend? But Black Friday kind of creates this perception that you have to spend money and that you have to, take part in these deals. You need to get these deals before, Christmas comes around. So it creates a sense of urgency along with very clever marketing tactics to make you feel like you're experiencing a bit of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And that can then often drive people, if they don't control themselves, it can drive them into quite a bit of debt.
And that's the thing, you guys point out at the fact that it really is a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, as you said, there's the opportunity to save, but at what expense, especially if it's pushing consumers into a financial trap? Because that sense of urgency of you must get it now often supersedes the rational thinking of, well, is it more of a want versus a need?
Exactly. And, retailers often use these bold, urgent colors, like red in their advertisements to create that sense of scarcity and urgency. And this actually plays to the psychology of the consumer and creates that sense and even like these emotional triggers. So there's people in society that have something called compulsive buying disorder. It affects about 5% of the population, and these people are often have these uncontrollable urges to spend money and to make purchases that often lead to disappointment. Now, during Black Friday, Christmas, all these heightened consumer-driven days, these people are at risk of being taken advantage of because of all these emotional triggers that are used in the advertisements.
I've never even heard of compulsive buying disorder. So that's a real thing.
Yeah. It affects about 5% of the population, with younger individuals and women being particularly vulnerable.
Of course. as I roll my eyes at us women. So who's at most risky, and how do we know if we sort of leaning towards that sort of compulsive buying disorder? Because then it almost seems to me that you're not really using rational thinking and processing in that scenario.
And so we have to see it as, because it is a behavioral addiction that's characterized by repetitive, excessive purchases. So unless you have this uncontrollable urge to constantly spend money, you most likely don't have this disorder. However, being aware of these triggers and being aware of your own, your own mindset and how you think and how you act can play a huge role in any situation, especially when it comes to your finances and how you spend money. Your self-awareness is probably the most important aspect to you taking control of your finances.
Absolutely. I mean, you've touched on the sort of marketing and positioning tactics that are used by retailers. Let's look at that a little bit, because what are we looking? I found that if you are, say, for instance, you're a regular shopper at your grocery store of choice, if you examine a little bit closer when that red sticker says it's flashing to you $19.99, and you shift it to the side a little bit and you look underneath, 9 out of 10 times, it's not an indication that you're getting the thing at a discount. It's just like a little bit of a trickery that is used because the item is actually $19.99. But now the perception is because it's got that red sticker flashing, so big, you think, oh, today it's on sale. And actually it's not.
Exactly that. So you see, these are the marketing practices that are used. And during Black Friday, they're almost, overutilized in order to create that sense of urgency. And to also, the more people that hype about Black Friday creates this almost herd mentality. And, we all want to be kind of part of the group, right? You don't want to feel like you're missing out. So trying to get as many people on board with it is also another marketing tactic on its own, because the more people that are part of it, the more people want to be part of it.
And truthfully speaking, I've seen some people on social media. For some reason, I think South Africans are starting to be a bit more savvy. Like they're starting to be savvy consumers, because the chat on social media has been, please, if you're going to come on Black Friday and say you 10%, 15% off, don't bother. Don't bother participating. Give us a proper discount. Can we look at 30% upwards here?
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of retailers have also been caught out over the years where there have been comparisons done between the average price of a product throughout the year and then comparing it to the Black Friday, and there's in many cases no difference whatsoever. So they market it as you're saving, but in fact you're paying the exact same amount that you otherwise would have. Not to say that there aren't discounts and that they aren't going to be savings. It's just that you need to be familiar with how much a specific product costs before Black Friday in order to identify the specials. Otherwise, it's going to be anybody's guess.
Yeah. And by way of our economic background, I know you touched on the sort of repo rate dropping, but it hasn't dropped significantly. When you think about the fact that we're celebrating sort of marginal savings of 200, 300 rands on, million rand bonds, that's not really room for you to say that, oh, I've got all of this excess money now.
No, I completely agree with you. It has been very minor in comparison to what a lot of economists have expected to drop, and I think it's because the Reserve Bank is just being a bit cautious at the moment, looking at what's happening in the US right now and how it's affecting our currency. I don't blame them. But what we do need to take into account is that inflation is really dipping well beyond what the 3% mark that the Reserve Bank has in place, which means that they're going to have to cut interest rates in order to get inflation back up into that sweet spot that they keep trying to maneuver it within. So there are definitely going to be rate cuts in future, and when those rate cuts take place, that eventually does add up. Half a basis point here, 25 there. It eventually adds up to the point where you do start seeing, instead of that 300-400 rand, you start seeing 1,500 rand. And that's now 1,500 rand that you don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
Consumers are going to be faced with either spending that amount of money or saving and investing it. And depending on timing, also depends on what you do with it.
Listen, I'm all for saving the money. I'm a saver because, important to what you just said, that the accumulative rate cuts are going to have a significant sort of impact in the future. But important to financial planning on our conversation today, you also cannot spend future money in the present, because then you'll have people saying, but next year June or next year this time, I probably, if it continues in this trend, I would have had an extra 1,000, so let me spend it this December and then I'll make it up next year, which is a trap we often fall into, spending future money that we don't have.
Definitely, and we're looking at the December coming up where people almost budget with their bonuses in mind. Like they think their bonuses are guaranteed, so they've already spent that money before they've received it. So you make a very good point there, and consumers have to work with the money that they have right now as opposed to the money that they're going to have, because that's also a huge unknown. You never know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to get a bonus this year. You don't know if you're going to get retrenched next year. Rather work with the money you have now and prepare for the future and plan for the future accordingly.
And as we wrap it up, Dihan, maybe 3 pointers and tips for those who are gung-ho on putting on their training sneakers as of tomorrow, and they've got their plans. They need the new fridge, the new TV, and everything else, and so they're ready to hit Black Friday and exploit it for everything that it's got over the course of the weekend. What tips would you give them just to ensure that they avoid starting the new year in a deficit?
Create a budget. So decide how much you can afford to spend and avoid exceeding that. Very important. Avoid credit as much as you possibly can, because that is just a trap on its own. And then pause and reflect. So before you make those purchases, just think a little on it before you make the purchase. You don't have much time because Black Friday creates that urgency. But before you enter and think about it, do you really need this? Do you really want this? Is this something you really wanted for a while? And can you afford it?
Very good tips there. Sage advice indeed. That was Dihan Sherman, who's a quality control and compliance manager with the National Debt Advisor. So I hope you got some tips for Black Friday weekend, but also just to set you up for 2025. As people keep reminding us, but I love seeing these conversations on social media now because it speaks to how we're changing as consumers. A lot of people keep tweeting now and posting saying, remember that this salary, your end of November salary, is actually the one that's going to see you through December. And your December salary is your January salary. So just keep that in mind, because everybody, you think November, December, and December bonus must all be eaten by the end of December 31. But November is what's going to deal with December, and December is what's going to deal with January. And in most instances, January is very long. A lot of you guys get paid December 13th, going into that long weekend. You already got your salary and your bonus check and everything else. And then your next paycheck comes December 25. And if you work in certain sort of spaces at SABC, it comes January 31. So just be very, very, very careful about how you spend money over the coming few weeks. Still to come on the other side of 2 o'clock, we're going to have that conversation with our parenting coach and education activist, and we're looking at just the evolution and the dangers of pens down parties and pens down rages. It's a continuing theme, this, because this time of the year, our young people, and it's a rite of passage, we understand it, right? Young people want to go out and celebrate the end of matric, the end of 12 years of secondary schooling, and they want to let their hair down just before they go off into tertiary and begin their young adults' lives. But also there's a few dangers that have arisen from these pens down parties. We know of everything that transpires, particularly in the Eastern Cape around this time of year with these kinds of parties, and the real consequences that come with it. And so we're going to have that conversation on the other side of 2 o'clock, and we're hoping to get your perspective on it as well. 0614104107, 086 000 2032. Are you willing and okay with your kids going to these rages? There used to be a big one, I think, in the coast of Durban, Margate or something. So are you okay with your kids going to these rages? Do you think it's a fine rite of passage? Or do you feel that perhaps in certain spaces they've become out of hand, and you as a parent would not advise for your children to do that? 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's take a quick break and then we come back with Ondela at the top of the hour.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight.
Is there a general culture that encourages police officers to seek mental health support in the police, or does it get to really dire circumstances before they seek such support and services?
I think is what we are raising, that it should be made mandatory that each member who has been exposed to a traumatic situation must be subjected for observation. Remember,
does that currently not happen?
Yes.
Is that currently not the case?
It's not the case. It's optional. It depends how the member feels. It depends what others see on a member. The member goes on shootout, they go on robberies, very traumatic accidents, no one take care of them.
Tulani Nsele is with Pop Crew.
This is Oliver Dixon on SAFM. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.co.za.
Get ready to honor Madiba's legacy together. Join us on 8 December at the Union Buildings in Tshwane, Gauteng, as we pay tribute to Nelson Mandela with the Mandela Remembrance Walk and Run. There's a distance for everyone: 21 kilometers, 10-kilometer run, and a 5-kilometer scenic walk. Enjoy loads of entertainment and plenty of fun for the kids. If you can't be there in person, you can participate from wherever you are, uniting with thousands around the country to honor Nelson Mandela's vision of unity, equality, and a just society. All proceeds will support the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Register now at mandelawalkandrun.com. Let's come together to remember Madiba. In proud partnership with Gauteng Province, the City of Tshwane, and SABC Sport. See you there. Let's make it a day to remember.
Think festive season. Can you hear it? See it? Now imagine it purple. Yes, forget the tinsel, because Click season is purple. It's that time of the year for the famous Clicks 3-for-2 purple sticker promotion. Mix and match any 3 festive gifts with a purple sticker and get the cheapest one free. Clicks. Feel good, pay less. Deals valid until 24 December or while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Top stories at 2 families left homeless after severe storm in Randfontein, and Constitutional Court hears Blind SA's copyright case. For SAFM News, I am Ondilambana, and a very good day. About 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's West Rand yesterday. Several areas, including Tukomstraat, Greenfields Estate and the Umphakathi Mall, were affected. More than 20 people were injured and received medical attention at nearby healthcare facilities. Randfontein Executive Mayor William Machege says the displaced families have been provided with shelter and food.
Communities of Tukomstraat, majority of them, they did not want to be moved to other areas of shelter. We are working jointly with the Gauteng provincial government as well as the National Department of Human Settlement as the custodian of disaster management within the country. We have stabilized the problem, and we are continuously checking with other business people around the area on areas where they can be able to assist us, because majority of people that are affected in Tukomstraat, they don't have insurance.
Johannesburg Water says it has various interventions in place to address challenges with the commando system. The system supplies water to areas that include Hursthill, Brixton and Crosby Reservoir. The water utility, however, says recovery has been slow on the system due to high demand. The utility's senior manager, Logan Munsami, was briefing the media in Newtown, Johannesburg, on the state of the city's water supply.
Notably so, we must appreciate that the weather conditions have been quite hot lot that has contributed to the system taking slow to recover. However, we've reconfigured our systems, both from the Joburg water side and from the bulk supply side. If these conditions are maintained, we believe normal operation within the next 2-3 days in the affected areas.
The Constitutional Court is hearing Blind SA's case, requesting that previous exceptions contained within the Copyright Act be resuscitated. These exceptions would allow persons who are blind and visually impaired to convert books into formats like Braille without the consent of the copyright holder. In October, Blind SA, represented by Section 27, launched an urgent case in the Constitutional Court against the President for his failure to sign the Copyright Amendment Bill. Christo de Klerk is the President of Blind SA.
We wanted the court to compel him to sign the bill because we felt that he had not done his work properly, that he did not attend to this. He then gave all sorts of reasons for not having done that. He said that he had concentrated on bills that required his signature to make the elections run smoothly, which is absolute nonsense. If you look at all the bills that he signed since then, many, and only 2 of them had anything to do with the elections. One of the bills he signed was for the private use of dagga. Now, I don't know whether that was necessary to make the elections run smoothly.
Energy experts say South Africa can learn a lot from India in addressing its energy challenges. The Wits Business School, in collaboration with the Consulate General of India, is hosting an energy conference in Johannesburg. The 2-day conference has brought together industry leaders and academics from South Africa and India to engage on shared and divergent energy challenges. Professor Maurice Khadebe is the head of the Wits Business School.
Energy is our only currency right now. And it's so critical for economic development, particularly of the global south. And that is why today is a gathering of 2 nations, India and South Africa. Energy leaders, energy experts, energy professionals, energy business leaders are gathering here at WITS to discuss this whole energy transition from high carbon economy to low carbon economy. This is a massive change in the world. So that's what so it needs a lot of thinking. So we've got academics here who are actually about how do we do it so that we don't do it in such a way that it disrupts, causes more poverty, and it leaves a lot of people behind.
At least 13 people have been killed in a landslide in eastern Uganda. However, officials fear that the number of those who died is much higher, as at least 40 houses were swept away. The landslides, triggered by heavy rainfall, affected multiple villages in the Bulambuli district. The Ugandan Red Cross Society took to X to share that a rescue operation is underway. According to local media reports, most of the bodies recovered have been of children. Recapping the top story, about 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's West Rand yesterday. I am Ondila Bona for SAFM News, headlines at 2:30.
It will be a hot affair between the Proteas and the English this summer. Who are the real queens of T20 cricket? Protea Fire meets England at Willowmore Park. What a summer without cricket! This is the 3rd and final Women's T20 international match, where summer cricket comes alive. South Africa versus England on Saturday 30 November at 6 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus, proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Think festive season. Can you hear it? See it? Now imagine it purple. Yes, forget the tinsel because Click season is purple. It's that time of the year for the famous Clicks 3-for-2 purple sticker promotion. Mix and match any 3 festive gifts with a purple sticker and get the cheapest one free. Clicks. Feel good, pay less. Deals valid until 24 December or while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona uyayazi lenta lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya kubalulekile uzame zonke indlela zokujabulisa isinqandamathe sakho kubalulekile uzame konke okusemandle ukuthi sijabule islavithi sakho ingozi enkulu ukuthi kufika umuntu ezama ukwenza into ongayenzi wena hayi uzosola ubani sebamchamile sebamthathile kuwe awuthi ukunyusa amasokisi uzoyazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya mnike ungamqabeli injabulo mnike kuzoba mnandi ekhaya yenza konke do all the best you can ungarelaxi mele kwenze wena nike akufunayo nike akudingayo uyakwazi konke wena uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona uyayazi lenta ifunayo mnike yona mnike yona umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya umengayitholi kuwe uzohambe ifuna angeke kusaba mnandi ekhaya mnike mnike ungamnqabeli mnike mnike ungamgodleli mnike mnike ungamncishi umntana abantu mnike mnike konke ngokwakhe oh.
It is Afro Traction coming through with Mniga, and the album was weirdly called Relationships. That's an interesting little title, I guess. And this one went on to win at the 14th Metro FM Awards, the Best Afro-Pop Album. Well, it was for lovers, actually. Okay, there's a lot of... what's the word that I'm looking for? It escapes me now. Perhaps I use corniness. Perhaps I'll borrow the word corniness in how they title their albums. Really speaks to the kind of music that they make. Best Afropop album for Lovers in 2013 that walked away with the Metro FM award, and of course in 2018 they walked away with a South African Music Award for Best R&B Soul Reggae album as well for Lovers. So they've not done too bad. That is how we enter the second hour of the show. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock. And by the way, today is a very important milestone marker, right, for most grade 12 learners, because today they actually officially put their pens down for the final time, and they close that chapter around matric examinations. It's been such a long time ago for me and matric that I barely have recollections, except for the anxiety that preceded sitting down for that final examination paper. But there's an excitement and a sense of satisfaction that comes with knowing that you are done. That's it. It's the end. You are writing your final exam. And you don't ever need to report to school again in the sense of high school. You don't have to wear your uniform again. You don't have to be chasing that 7:30 bell. And you can look forward to everything that tertiary and higher education has in store for you and the future that will unfold. And so kids want to mark the moment. They want to honor the moment. And I think it's all right to honor and mark the moment. It's perfectly acceptable to have these milestones, and close the chapters in the most appropriate way. And so we thought that we'd have this conversation around the evolution and perhaps even the dangers that comes with, pens downs, with rages, which is what young people term the events that are centered around saying, "Sesiqedile ngesikole, we are done with it now. We can let our head down and really just rejoice in the moment." And so we've got Ayanda Tejani joining us, who's our parenting coach. How are you doing, Ayanda?
I'm great, Bridget. Can you hear me clearly?
I can indeed. I can.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Always appreciated. Let's talk firstly, I guess. Let's be positive. So let's talk about the importance of just these rites of passage and honoring the moment for what it is and closing the chapter in the most age appropriate way, because there is some good to sort of these rites and rituals that we undertake at different ages and stages.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the word used there with the whole rites of passage. I just think that, listen, this is like a cultural evolution. In my time, we didn't really go to such things, okay? But I think it's very important that as an individual, in terms of your own parenting, you really need to consider your own child. What kind of person are they? Will they be able to be responsible? Should they, for instance, go out to these events? You have to really have all these questions that you're asking yourself. You have to talk about things like, consent, boundaries. Have you had these conversations with your child, who is now going to be a teen and hopefully an adult? So for me, this is such an important milestone in terms of their development. But depending on where they're planning to go in terms of their future, it's a little teardrop in terms of the bigger speck of it. So you want to make sure that whatever's done or whatever happens does not mess up the rest of their lives, because you know how it is. Yeah. Teenagers, even at that later ages, they are still quite irresponsible. Once they're in places with other teens, they do get involved in risky behaviors. So you really need to be quite intentional or very considering your individual child when you let them go out to these things. And maybe you could even think about different ways to celebrate these milestones within your own home that doesn't necessarily allow them going out to these spaces. Unfortunately, we just do not live in a very safe country.
Yeah.
For me, my girl child for the longest time we've had these things at the schools in terms of festivals, but I'm there at every event. I feel more comfortable that way. So as parents, we really need to consider those things and consider the environment and consider the bigger picture. As much as there's so much to celebrate, but we also need to be keeping our foot on the pedal.
Yeah. And as you say, it's about knowing your own child. Perhaps I'm just the skeptic aunt from the outside looking in, and I blink and I reflect back on my little adolescence, which I didn't push boundaries very far at all, but I pushed them far enough to get reprimanded, get a clap here or there, and so I feel sometimes that actually who your child is to you at home could be someone completely different to who your child is in their circle of friends, and how they respond in situations of peer pressure when they are with their peers versus how they would tell you they respond, or how they would respond when they are at home with you as mom and dad, could sometimes be very different. So I don't rely very much on the persona that children give. I always leave room for disappointment.
So I think what we can normally do in terms of just measuring something like that, Bridget, is to just look at them in terms of just like, how do they do like little things in your home? Like, say for instance, you've given them responsibilities and they know some of the boundaries that you normally put in your home. Let's be honest, if your child can't follow those simple orders that you give on a day-to-day, and it's like to the extreme, it doesn't matter where they are outside there. Chances are, when there's a whole lot of peer pressure stuff happening, challenges, social media, they're most likely going to engage in that. And that could obviously be those risky behaviors. So in instances like that, you really need to think as a parent to say, is this something that I'm willing to endorse? We do not have to participate in every cultural pop thing that happens out there for our children. They will not die if they don't go to prom because of whatever. Say for instance, your child broke rules and they missed out, or they didn't perform and they don't go to certain things at school. That's perfectly normal. That is the part that's very important, that sometimes as parents we forget. It's that structure that is very much needed. So in balancing out rewarding our children and almost disciplining them, you have to always be looking for such things, and then know to say, if you didn't perform this way, what are you going to celebrate? Looking at the books in terms of how they performed the previous semester, and so we have to start using that kind of mindset if we want to be intentional about raising future leaders, future problem solvers, and hopefully, for me, it's never ever too late. So even at a stage where you're hearing this interview now and saying, you know what, my child hasn't really earned the right to do any of that. Let's go find this child a job. Let them work at a restaurant. Find them someone in your circles who they can shadow at work, and that should be the reality of the fact that, listen, there should be responsibility and accountability. And as parents, we, in many instances, take our foot off the pedal when it comes to that. And that's no laughing matter at all.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, let's shift the angle of responsibility a little bit and look at perhaps the role that school and community would have in promoting a safer space, or a safer alternative space for these rage fests and these penned down parties to happen. Is that possible? I mean, are we being realistic here? Do our kids really want to be partying under the supervision of quote unquote cool parents? So that just defeats the purpose.
I'm a cool parent, Bridget. I go to all of these events.
Yeah,
it's quite nice.
You're cool enough to come to the music festival at school, but you're not quite cool enough when I'm exchanging my high school jacket with, my high school boyfriend, and we're snogging for the last time because we finished our exam. I don't want you there.
You see now that's where the problem is, because then so many other things happen. One of the things that has happened in my community that is very scary, for instance, is with something like the similar last year, where there were like a whole lot of date rape stuff that was inserted in some of the drinks, and it was just the most horrific thing. If you're a mother to a teen who had gone to this thing, because now you have to sit down and have a conversation with your child and find out what happened. Did something happen? And you were not there as a parent. So this is where, you know, there'll always be cultural norms, and then there should be things that you put your foot down and say, nah, nope, I'm not willing to. You know, even as an adult, Bridget, I cannot go out and leave my drink and go somewhere. I need to be always conscious about things like that. Now, how am I preparing my children to know that they also need to be? And if you know that your child may not be able to bear that kind of responsibility, no, they must stay home.
Yeah, no, it's the real truth. I want to catch up with some high schoolers quickly. Erin Voss, who is the head girl at Greenside High School, and they've just finished writing their exams this past Monday, and they're on the phone with us. Erin, how are you? Is Erin on the line? How are you doing this afternoon, Erin? You good?
I'm good, thanks. And how are you doing?
I'm fabulous. Congratulations on finishing high school. I'm sure it was a fruitful final year for you.
Yes, it was, but, you know, the years leading up to it was also fruitful as well. So can't complain.
Absolutely. So I don't know if a head girl is going to be honest about this, because, you know, head girls are sort of model students and responsible and socially active and all the rest of it. But I wonder, Erin, what's your sentiment around pens down, pens down parties and matric rages and things of that sort? Is it something that you feel would be a rite of passage for yourself and your fellow students?
Okay, so the other day, my mother and I were having this conversation when we were taking a walk. And honestly, for myself, I just feel like these kind of parties are like targeting young people. They're making it about these being a pins down kind of party, a celebration, being a rite of passage. But it's really such an unsafe environment if you think about it. I know it sounds as if I'm being a head girl and have to say the right thing for myself. I just don't know. It doesn't look safe, and I wouldn't want to put myself in that kind of dangerous situation where you're surrounded by people that are just, you know, under the influence and stuff like that. So that's just from my personal experience.
Yeah. Well, without telling us whether or not, you know, the kids at school are having a pens down, let's not be specific, but have you heard, is a pens down a trend, though, still with matriculants in the area?
A very big trend. I think I've seen about 5 flyers going around on WhatsApp and on Instagram. Yeah, so it's a very big thing, and I think a lot of people are going to them and are partying and stuff. Yeah.
Very interesting. Faith is also on the line, and I think she also goes to Greenside. How are you, Faith?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Faith Sibanda, also matriculant, yes, at Greenside High School. Did you also have a good exam season?
Yes, it was a good exam season. I had my friends throughout everything, so no complaints on my side.
I love it. So what are your thoughts when it comes to pens down and matric rages?
You know, I think Erin has said most of it. It's such an unsafe environment, and it's really not advisable because of how targeted it is towards matriculants. It just makes it extremely unsafe, and the connotations of it also just say, or they just scream something of like unsafe.
Yeah. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that. Obviously, we haven't been, you know, matriculants in a few years now, but I was saying to Ayanda, who's a parenting coach, that even, you know, no one wants to party with even the cool parents. So cool parents wouldn't be allowed in these settings because of the connotations of it. And what are we looking at here? How far are kids now pushing the boundaries at these events?
I think Ms. Ayanda said something that was so interesting. She mentioned date rape, and that is something that happens so often at these kind of things. And she was also saying that we wouldn't want our parents to be there. So, like, what are you doing that your parents can't see? You know, it's about having integrity and keeping the same kind of attitude around your parents, around your friends as well. So, although you were like allowed to party and be yourself, it's just, you know, do things that your parents would know that you are doing.
Yeah.
So just keeping the same throughout.
Faith, would you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. I was actually about to say something similar of what Aaron was saying. It's definitely all about integrity and just doing the right thing, especially because I heard Ayanda talking about how the parents should know how the child would act and all of that. So I think that also comes into play as well.
Yeah. Ladies, we wish you the very best, and however you choose to mark the moment, it sounds like you ladies are going to do it quite responsibly with your circle of friends.
Yes.
Lovely. We love it. That was Erin Voss, Greenside High School's head girl, and of course Faith Sibande, also a Greenside matriculant, chiming in on the conversation there. I mean, these two, I understand, like solid kids, but
well done to their parents.
you know what I mean? But we're not always dealing with solid kids, and I think what I heard them both say, and obviously they can't divulge too much because we also understand they still are answerable to their peers. You don't want to be the person who's letting out all the secrets. But it also sounds like these parties aren't necessarily just exclusively for their age peers. There are other elements that infiltrate these environments that maybe don't have the best interests of a 17, 18, 16-year-old at heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as parents, parents to a 16-year-old, a parent to a 12-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son, I would be scared if my son was a very irresponsible young man who I knew just lost it when he was with his friends. I would want to lock him up at home. And if I thought that my daughter as well would be irresponsible in how she acts, I would also just for my own sanity, lock them up. This is the thing, we often get so stuck up. I mean, think about yourself, Bridget, like matric farewell, all these things that happened back in high school. You didn't attend them, you attended them. What big difference? Did the world fall apart? Did it change the price of rent? No, really.
Yeah.
Yes, your children will be upset at that moment, but so this is what we do. I'll make an example. So at the school where I'm SGB at, we are very strict about the type of children who come to our matric dance, for instance. So in terms of your meritas, what you call it now. So if you've gotten too many red letters, for instance, to a certain extent, you're not allowed to come to the matric dance because it says a whole lot about your behavior and that you're not able to manage that.
Yeah.
At the matric dance, there's an expectation that the people who are there are people who are able to manage themselves, who are a little bit matured. There's not going to be a whole lot of adults who are there. There are not going to be a lot of teachers who are watching every move. So we have been very intentional to put that into law in our school to say these are the children who deserve to celebrate this event. So maybe as a parent who's listening and your child is going into grade 11, grade 12 next year, just when the year starts, start writing up these type of contracts where you can tell your child, listen, these type of things are things that you're going to participate in as a reward towards a certain type of behavior, and be very clear to discuss what kind of behavior that is in terms of academic performance, in terms of cultural things, sports, athletics at school. Those things are important, and how your children act towards all of that says a lot about how they will be for the first 5 years when they start to go out in university and all of those. And if you still need to put a little bit of a whip in it, I'm not saying in your child, but I'm just meaning in the disciplining of your child, you still are able to at that age, and you need to do that. And they need to know that there's always accountability. We can never put our foot off the pedal when it comes to that.
Absolutely. We have to leave it there for this afternoon, but always a pleasure being in conversation with you. That was a parenting coach, Ayanda Tichane, and it was also lovely to actually hear the younger audiences chiming in on a conversation that specifically involves them. It's gone 2:30. Ondela standing by.
Thank you, Bridget. In your news headlines, about 190 families have been displaced after a severe storm swept through Randfontein on Gauteng's West Rand yesterday. The lawyer for convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Pester has been asked about the process he followed to bring his application to the Free State High Court, and a plan to adapt housing in the Durban Metro to climate change and the natural disasters that go with it has been launched. A wide cross-section of society, NGOs and experts have worked on it for the past 2 years. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good afternoon and welcome to Side by Side. Here we honor you, the heart and strength behind your child's development. We know and understand that parenting is not always easy, but we're here to walk this journey with you, sharing practical advices and wisdom from experts to support you every step of the way. Today we're talking about the importance of not discriminating between girls and boys in early childhood development. We just had on our Side by Side drama episode yesterday, Sakumse expressing his hope for a boy, and it's something many parents can relate to. But let's take a moment to talk about why every child, regardless of gender, deserves equal opportunities to grow, learn, and explore their unique talents. Gender stereotypes can shape how our children see themselves and their potential. So today, let's explore how to create a nurturing environment that celebrates each child's individuality. This is Side by Side, proudly brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Let's get started with today's conversation. Joining us to talk about gender equality in early childhood development is Dr. Hlophe from Herigwala Hospital. Thank you, Dr. Hlophe, for joining us today. What is the importance of preventing gender discrimination in early childhood development?
Thank you for having me today. Avoiding gender discrimination in early childhood development is crucial because it ensures that all children have equal opportunities to explore their interest and develop their abilities. Gender stereotypes can limit a child's potential by restricting their experience and the types of activities they engage in. By encouraging both boys and girls to participate in a variety of activities, the parents and the caregivers can help them develop a broad range of skills and interests. This approach promotes self-confidence, creativity, resilience, and it helps to break down the societal stereotypes and the barriers that can impact the child's future.
Dr. Hlophe, some parents are not aware that they're discriminating. So what are the effective strategies that parents and caregivers can use to foster gender equality in the upbringing of their children?
Parents and caregivers can promote gender equality by providing a variety of toys and activities that encourage both boys and girls to explore different interests. This includes offering toys like dolls, building blocks, and art supplies to all children, regardless of their gender. It's also important to avoid making assumptions about what a child might like just based on their gender. Encouraging children to express their feelings and support them in all their interests helps to create an inclusive environment. Additionally to that, the parents can model a gender equality by sharing household responsibilities equally and discussing the value of all roles and careers regardless of gender. Reading books and telling stories that challenge traditional gender roles can also help children understand and embrace a gender equality.
So how can parents educate boys and girls about their equal value and importance?
The adults can teach the girls and the boys to respect each other, share things fairly, and cooperate on tasks together. The boys should not be shamed for showing their emotions, especially feelings of fear and sadness. The adults can also help the boys name and express their feelings and also help the girls say what they think and feel without fear of rejection or ridicule. Both boys and girls can learn to do all kinds of chores and share the same responsibilities. These are things like cooking, cleaning, caring for younger brothers and sisters, tending crops and animals, and using tools and machines. Adults can also help children create puppet shows or plays that use new toys, new stories, or change traditional ones, so they do not reinforce gender roles. An example would be a story about a girl who rescues a boy from a monster instead of a boy rescuing a girl.
What an interesting topic today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hlophe, for joining us. Any last words?
What is also important is to talk with children about the stories and the magazines they read. the songs they listen to and the TV shows, movies and videos they watch, and help them question harmful gender roles when they are prompted in these media. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child's best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa Labantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again, same time next week, when we'll be talking about hygiene for you and your baby at home.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Love a good murder mystery? Then Death in Paradise Season 3 will keep you entertained with a series of impossible murders on the beautiful Caribbean island of St. Marie. Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with Top Gear Season 25 and 26, Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
Constipation got you down? Progast Colon Cleanse is here to help. With unique blends and detoxifying agents, experience relief from occasional constipation, IBS-C, and digestive block-ups. Trusted by nurses, pharmacists, and recommended by doctors. Ask for Progast Colon Cleanse today. If it doesn't say Progast, it's not the genuine product. Available at leading pharmacies nationwide. Progast, the professional's choice.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
My name is Vusiwe intokazi yakwaNgcobo ufuze umapholo mashiya makhulu mashiya made engasazoshumayela. When last did I go to a party and how was the experience? I don't party at all. But my parents did have a 40th wedding anniversary as well as my mom's 60th birthday, so that was the last party I went to. Nothing beats partying with older people. It's a lot of fun. Can I sing a short verse of appreciation? What am I gonna sing? Holy, you'll always be. What do I like so much about SABC Sport? It's not even a like, it's a love. I love the fact that we're able to bring real stories to the people of South Africa. Catch
the Queen of Mzansi Diski, Vusiwe Ngcobo, on match days, live on Laduma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We are in the final stretch. We're getting ready to wrap up the show in the last 20 minutes. But I mean, our lines are still open if you'd like to share your opinion. Perhaps especially after you've heard what Ayanda had to say about these matric pens down parties and rages. And also, I think, you know, our two scholars really did give us, confirmed a lot of what we know probably happens at this, without them painting us a very vivid picture verbatim, but they did allude to the kinds of behaviors and elements that are at these parties, and both of them saying that it's not something they would necessarily partake in themselves per se, but they've also seen, you know, the flyers roaming around in their respective WhatsApp groups, inviting kids to these rages and matric pens down parties. You know, some things you think are things that only happen in particular communities. Some folks would go, this happens in lower income communities in the Eastern Cape where kids are unsupervised and left to roam by themselves. And some people hold that perception, right? This very sort of inaccurate perception of particular communities. And some folks would go, it only happens in the upper class, upper affluent families where, once again, kids are left to roam unsupervised and. But kids are kids, regardless of, which sort of strata they grow up in, what kind of environment and dynamics they grow up in. Kids are kids. And we've all been kids before, and we kind of know the behaviors that we would partake in given half a chance, given half a gap to do it. In you thinking that you could do it and get away with it, you would definitely do it as well. I would still love to hear from you, your perspective on this. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and of course 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. But for now, though, we are chatting to Michael Zahariev, and we are talking around the Africa's luxury market, which apparently is defying economic pressures. And Michael is the co-founder of Lux City. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, thank you, and great to be here with your listeners this afternoon.
Thank you so much for lending us your time. So let's talk about this. Lay us the groundwork, when we sort of looking at how Africa's luxury market is defying economic pressures. What is the data telling us? What is the picture that the environment is painting?
Yes, well, what's quite interesting is that this year has been quite a turbulent year for the luxury market. Many of the luxury brands have started to underperform. Bain is actually predicting that only 1/3 of luxury brands will be able to grow revenue in the next year. That's compared to 2/3 last year. And looking internationally, they're predicting that the luxury market's going to grow 2 to 4%. Now, when we look in South Africa, the Clear Shopping Centre Index report shows us that the luxury segment in South Africa has per trading density is growing at 8%. So that's double the higher end of the expected international rate. So really it's saying that South Africa is really outperforming the international context in terms of luxury sales.
But now, what's fueling that, Michael? What factors are driving that sort of 8% growth in South Africa? Also, just considering the fact that we're dealing with so much here, constricted economy, inflation, the environment doesn't necessarily lend itself to us believing that people are earning in surplus.
No, I think that's true, and definitely there are a lot of economic pressures. But if we look internationally, there are economic pressures in many, many areas. Specifically, the East is really struggling to come back. There's a lot of economic pressures there, and the luxury brands have really overinvested in some areas, specifically the East, and that's what's leading to their underperformance. Whereas when we look in the local context, although there might be some demand-side constraints, some people might not be having as much disposable income, etc., there are much stronger supply-side constraints. So there are no new brand entrants that recently. There's not that much investment been recently, and that's really what's growing this demand outsized to the supply. The good news is that that's set to change. We are seeing new investment. We are seeing new brand entrants coming. Fenton Cities adding more luxury stores. V&A Waterfront's redeveloping their luxury wing. So definitely there is more supply coming, and hopefully the demand will keep up with it.
Now, as we sort of keep up, this demand and supply of this luxury market, in my mind, I'm thinking of, a China, for instance, at one point, a Japan, at instance, at one point, where luxury was really the order of the day. But it almost seems as though it's digressing or stagnant now. What are the lessons to be learned there? Because there was a time, 10, 15 years ago, you'd go to mainland China, and there'd be restrictions as to how many items a customer can purchase at a store.
Exactly. I mean, the lesson of the day really is for the brands to make sure that they're appealing to customers, not just looking to grow their business, where can we exploit, how can we make more revenue, but it means to really appeal to the customer, solve what the customer demand is, what the customer problem is, what the customer aspiration is. And I think that's why the pre-owned market's really been flourishing, because we've been able to keep abreast of what customers are looking for, whether it's access, different brands, etc.
Walk us through some more insights that have come from the report and sort of, the things that become pertinent to South African consumers, particularly, who are now really only just in recent years getting a taste of the accessibility of luxury at our doorsteps.
Oh, I think one of the main takeaways and the new interesting things in this year's report is that, consumers are really starting to look at a wider range of brands. Previously, most consumers were gravitating towards Louis Vuitton and Gucci exclusively to a certain extent. Whereas now, when we look at the report, the landscape is much more widespread. And what's really exciting is it's the first year that we've included local luxury brand Browns, and we were curious to see how it would perform, compared to its international peers. And in fact, it's performed quite well. It's only just off of what Cartier, the international comparative, is performing, whereas Cartier is selling at 74% at retail and Browns is selling at 66%. So that really speaks to the value that even local luxury brands can bring in the market, which is doing so well.
I love Mia Browns. Shameless punting there. I love Mia Browns. They just have a wonderful story and really just par excellence in the way of diamond manufacturing and production. Let's talk as well about, are we maybe seeing signs of brand fatigue? Is that something that should be a concern in the near future, or not so much? We're still kind of enthusiastic.
Well, certainly there are some signs of it, but I don't think in the international sense where brand fatigue more means luxury fatigue. Whereas in South Africa, I think brand fatigue is actual brand fatigue in a way that I'm willing to explore other brands. I want to find a brand that's appealing to me. It's not just over-commercializing. So in that sense, we are seeing some of the trends internationally, but not as strong and as aggressive as, we are internationally. And I think there's an upside to that, because it really allows for new market entrants, more excitement in the market, more competition, which will hopefully lead to a better market in the medium term.
What say you about, possibility of opportunity maybe for investors?
Well, I think there's great opportunities for investors, specifically at looking into what the next African luxury brand is. I mean, if that's the one takeaway that we've seen, is that even internationally there's starved for what is the next African luxury brand, what is the next true African luxury brand. So certainly we believe there's possibility there. I mean, we're seeing investors coming to the table, as I mentioned, the development of new luxury wings in V&A Waterfront, Sanctum City, more brands coming into the country. But really what we think the future is what is the next African luxury brand.
That's quite an interesting debate, right? I see it when you glimpse social media. I'm just thinking top of mind, for instance, Maxhosa comes to mind as a premium knitwear luxury brand, and that's been their positioning. From the minute they came into market, that's been their positioning. And then they've evolved so much as a brand, right? And then infiltrated international markets, now with a brick and mortar base in New York that seems to be doing well, plans of expanding into Europe. But there's still this debate that you see on social media. Somebody posted a garment of theirs on Twitter just as recent as last week, I think retailing for 50 odd thousand rand. And there was the debate about what constitutes a luxury brand. And folks were saying, well, should a conversation around legacy and heritage be put on the table at that particular price point? If you're going to price at that higher price pack, then should you be saying that you've got the 100 years of legacy of a Masoni, or the other equivalent to what you do, or the fact that you've come into market and you've placed yourself as a luxury brand and obviously tick all the boxes of quality, etc., then would justify the price. Just your thoughts around that kind of discourse and debate.
Well, I think legacy is a very important point. It's a point that obviously holds a lot of value. It's something we can't disregard. But I think it's also, if it's the only thing we're going to consider, it's going to deter any entrance, because essentially no one's going to be able to enter the market if we can't have a 100-year company to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when we look at Africa, you're not going to find a brand that has that legacy, or has come from that true legacy in the same sense that a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci or etc. have. But I don't think that's to dissuade you. I think if anything, it puts more pressure on those brands to perform in the other areas, which are quality, which are exclusivity, uniqueness, creativity, etc. And in a sense, if we start looking at the bigger, more legacy brands, a lot of them recently have become over-commercialized, with a lot of their customers complaining about, the quality of the product now versus 20 years ago versus 40 years ago. Perhaps because they're over-dependent on that idea of legacy. They're leaning too much on it. So, of course, that's a factor, but I don't think it's the only factor when we talk about what a luxury brand is.
Yeah. And to your point about a lot of the luxury brands, the legacy luxury brands becoming overly commercialized, you've seen a lot of them rolling back some of their strategies even in the last year or two, where they've now sort of creating this access to demand type of dynamic, where they are literally putting in stringent measures now as to who has access to them. Just trying to create that scarcity and that rarity once again.
Exactly, because I think even more important than heritage for a luxury brand is exclusivity.
Yeah.
And if you're just a brand which everyone has, then you've lost that exclusivity. So that's the fine line, and I think that's really what they're trying to maintain and withhold, that exclusivity, so that the core clients really demand that brand.
Mm-hmm. Always interesting insights and conversation with you. That was Michael Zahariev, who is the Luxury co-founder, just walking us through some of that data and the trends in as far as luxury markets on the continent, not just specific to South Africa, but on the continent. How are they performing? And then, of course, just taking the opportunity to just broaden the scope of our conversation as well. Let's take a quick pause, and then we'll come back on the other side of this and wrap up the show.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Buccaneers believe this is their season to finish on the summit, but Stellies want to secure a permanent top 4 position. Gauteng battles it out with Western Cape. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch the unmatched passion and drama of Ipolala Mzansi. Orlando Pirates FC versus Stellenbosch FC on Sunday, 1st December. Live on SABC 1 at 3 p.m. and SABC radio stations at 3:30 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone. Always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theater of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Literally, it's the last few moments of the show, and we are wrapping it up. We were hoping to touch base with you today, but you're relatively quiet on your end this afternoon. I guess you also are feeling your own sense of year-end fatigue, right? To some degree, you kind of are reaching that point in the year where every day you just you're just trying to make it through the day. But that is our programming for today, and we're going to make way for Ashraf and his team to come through and take over from 3 o'clock. But we'll be back with you again tomorrow, and of course, on Fridays we kind of take things a little bit more easier on the show, and we do some artistic and cultural conversations. It's always a good time. It's always a good time indeed. We had the Drakensberg Boys Choir here yesterday, and it seems from what I'm seeing on social media, you thoroughly enjoyed them being in studio, setting the tone for the festive season, and Ashraf going so far as to ask us, how were we able to fit the entire choir in the studio? It was quite a test, yeah, but it worked out. It worked out indeed. And so appreciate them. They've got that concert happening this weekend as part of their Noel tour, and their schedule is up on their website. So if you just go to Google and you type in Drakensberg Boys Choir, and the official website will come up, and then you can have a look at their schedule, as well as the locations and ticketing prices for that. But that's literally it from us. Ashraf is standing by with the team. They're taking over 3 until 6. And of course, Ondela is going to come through at the top of the hour with your latest news headlines. From us and my team, thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation. And we'll see you tomorrow. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
For 30 years, we've stood together, advancing collective action to end violence against women and children. But the fight is far from over. Your voice matters. Every action counts. From educating our communities to supporting survivors, it's time to unite and create a future free from fear. Join SAFM for 16 days of activism. Together we can make a difference. Together we can end the violence. Because 30 years of progress means we cannot stop now. Let's advance the fight. Stand up, speak out, take action. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Bridget, about the pens down, my little sister finished also, and I just told her to just take it easy, enjoy your newfound freedom, and just be careful, don't overdo it. Don't get too excited. Don't do something that's going to cost you next year just because you want to do whatever you have to do, or not have to, but you want to have fun with your friends and anything like that. But more than anything, please be safe and just let everybody know where you're at, okay? You don't need to sneak out.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so to confirm then, you're saying the actual printing of the exam paper is 200 million rands only, right? And I use the word only.
Yeah, 220 million,
okay. Yes. Total cost 3.6 billion rands. And you're saying that 3.6 is actually consistent in terms of what's expected of a cost, so you don't have overspending there.
Yeah, so the process of setting question papers, you get a group of people in a room over a period of time to work out what the questions should be. Remember, we've got about 200 question papers that are set in this exam just in 2024. And for each paper, you will need a group of experts who sit in a room to consider the best possible scenario, which will become a question paper for each subject for the learners in the given year.
Nigel Mslanga, the Department of Basic Education spokesperson.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.co.za.
Top stories at 3. Minister Mchunu to visit Stilfontein tomorrow and a plan to build climate-friendly houses. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana and a very good afternoon. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu is expected to visit the Stilfontein area in the northwest tomorrow. This is Mchunu's second visit to the province this month, and he will be accompanied by his deputy, Poli Bushielo. This comes as more illegal